Hello, this is Harry. In this video, we'll watch a movie starring Michael Douglas, Fatal Attraction. Dan was a lawyer, his wife was kind and virtuous, his daughter was cute. The happy life of them envied others. The publishing company held a business dinner one day. Dan was responsible for the legal affairs of this company, so he was also on the list of invitations. He took his wife to the dinner together. At the banquet, Dan met Alex, the new editor of the publishing company. Alex couldn't be called beautiful, but she seemed to have a mysterious temperament. It always attracted men's eyes to stay on her. Dan and Alex left the meeting room with his wife after a few words. Dan's family lived in a small apartment. They always wanted to move to a bigger house. Considering their financial condition, the wife planned to buy a house in the suburbs where the cost of living was relatively low. The wife took her daughter back to her parents' home in the suburbs on the weekend to take a look at a house on sale there. Because the book that the publisher was preparing to publish involved some legal issues, Dan was temporarily notified to work overtime at the publishing company. Alex was also working overtime at the same time. After getting off work, the two met again while waiting for the bus at the company gate. Taxis were particularly hard to find due to the rain, so the two went to the restaurant next to the place. They planned to eat something and waited until the rain stopped before leaving. One was a middle-aged man whose wife was not at home. One was a single mature woman who had not dated. After the two chatted for a while, the atmosphere became warm. After a simple mutual trial, confirming that the other party understood adult games, two piles of dry wood jumped into action that night. In the evening, Alex took Dan back to her apartment and stayed for one night. Dan left a note for Alex the next morning and went home. When he opened the message, his wife called last night. Dan called his wife and lied that he went to a friend's house last night. The wife was convinced and believed in him. Because the seller couldn't come back on Monday afternoon, she and her daughter had to stay at their parents' house for one more day. As soon as he hung up his wife's call, Alex called. She wanted Dan to spend the weekend with her. After Dan came home and heard his wife's voice, he felt guilty in his heart. So he found an excuse to decline Alex's invitation. But in the end, he didn't stand the temptation and went to see Alex. The dogs didn't know what evil they had done to witness this kind of thing. Dan talked about his wife and children during dinner and said that his current family life made him feel very happy. Alex said bluntly, "So what are you doing here?" Dan could only wipe his mouth to hide his embarrassment. In fact, Alex was extremely lost. The short time together had made her fall in love with Dan. After the meal, when Dan was happy and ready to leave, Alex cried and expressed that she wanted to be with him. Dan stepped forward and gave a hug to discover that Alex had cut her wrist. This action frightened Dan. He hurriedly cleaned and bandaged the wound for Alex and stayed with her all night. Returning home from work the next day, Dan hugged his wife tightly. He found out that his wife was better. In the following days, Dan left this dewy love forgotten, being busy at work as usual, and enjoying peaceful family life with his wife and daughter as usual. He was also very satisfied with the house his wife fancied in the suburbs. They could move to a spacious new home the next day. But one day, Alex suddenly came to the law firm to visit Dan. She felt sorry for the extreme behavior that day. It was grateful for Dan to stay with her that day because many men would leave right away when they encountered such a situation. Hearing this, Dan felt relieved. He thought this woman was a bit abnormal. But then, Alex said she bought the opera tickets 2 weeks later and wanted Dan to come with her. Dan refused and mentioned that it was over between them. Alex couldn't hide her disappointment and left the office in restraints. But then Alex's miss for Dan grew wildly. She started calling Dan's office over and over again. Dan told her firmly that it was all over and hoped she wouldn't contact him anymore. But Alex did not give up. Dan and his wife were meeting with friends at home that night. The phone rang. Dan's heart trembled. The wife answered the phone and hung up after hearing nothing. Fortunately, the wife didn't doubt anything, but it was not over yet. Alex called again at 2 o'clock in the night. She heard Dan's voice. She asked Dan to meet at 6 o'clock the next morning and emphasized that he must come. Dan was very angry after the two met. "Why are you doing this? Why do you read so much into everything? I have a whole relationship with someone else." But Alex thought that a whole did not mean happiness. Otherwise, Dan wouldn't spend 2 nights with her. She wishfully thought that Dan was the happiest being with her. Dan kept explaining that he wanted to make Alex understand that they only had an affair. At this time, Alex threw a bomb, "I'm pregnant," and gave the doctor's business card to Dan. "Here's his card, you can call him." When Dan heard this, he became numb. Then the characteristic of a scumbag appeared. "And how do you know it's mine?" He might also feel that his words were a bit too much. He also proposed that he would pay to take Alex to the abortion. But Alex wanted to give birth to this child. Alex's paranoia and madness made Dan feel threatened. After he confirmed the fact that Alex was pregnant from the doctor, he wanted to find evidence to prove that the child might not belong to him. So he sneaked into Alex's apartment while she was out and tried to find evidence but found nothing. Alex's entanglement made Dan very scared. He didn't want to lose his current family. In order to avoid Alex, Dan directly changed the phone number at home. Only 2 days passed peacefully. Dan came home from work but saw Alex chatting with his wife. It turned out that Alex couldn't get through the phone and couldn't find Dan, so she came directly to the door. She lied that she saw the sale of the apartment and came to see the house. Dan's wife knew nothing and enthusiastically introduced Alex to the house. She also gave Alex the new phone number. Alex finally forced Dan to go to her apartment to meet her. Dan lost his temper as soon as he walked in. Alex also had a showdown. She didn't want to be abandoned. She was going to give birth to Dan's child and become a part of his life. Dan saw that she was really hopeless and left in anger. In order to get rid of Alex as soon as possible, Dan couldn't wait to move in before his new home was painted and tidied up. The phone rang while they were moving. Dan's nerves tightened instantly and rushed to answer the phone. He breathed a long sigh of relief when he heard that the person calling was not Alex. His daughter always wanted to raise a rabbit. The new home's yard was more spacious, so Dan bought one to satisfy his daughter's wish. But when he came to the parking lot with a cage and ready to go home, he saw that the front hood of the car was waved with acid. The whole car was scrapped. Dan knew it must be Alex. He lied to his wife that the car's engine was broken. Then he borrowed a car and went back to his new home. Who knew that Alex followed all the way to know the location of his new house? Through the window, Alex saw the happy and warm look of Dan to his family by the fireplace. Jealous morning sickness. Dan came to the police station the next day. He wanted the police to file a lawsuit for Alex's damage to his car and said that this woman was crazy. He didn't know what terrible thing she would do next. But the sheriff said they couldn't do anything without evidence, not to arrest people because of what they might not do. The police couldn't take Dan out of trouble. He could only passively wait and bear what may happen. But he deserved to take the blame for himself. In the afternoon, Dan and his wife took the children to their parents' house. But when they came back, the cute rabbit was almost simmered. The wife was frightened, and the daughter was sad. Dan realized that in order to protect his family, he had to confess everything. Although his wife was surprised to learn the truth, she was able to keep calm. After all, Dan still loved her and loved this family. But when she learned that Alex was pregnant with Dan's child, she couldn't stand it anymore and drove Dan out emotionally. Before leaving, Dan called Alex at the request of his wife. Alex didn't believe that Dan had the courage to confess to his wife. At this time, Dan's wife took the call to warn Alex. "If you ever come near my family again, I'll kill you." However, her warning made Alex's behavior worse. When the wife went to school to pick up her daughter one day, her daughter was missing. She drove anxiously across the street looking for her. There was a car accident in a daze. Fortunately, there was no dead person. Alex did not harm the child after quietly taking away Dan's daughter. She took the child to play in the playground and then sent the child back. Dan looked at his injured wife's intestines and regretted it very much. Alex's behavior had touched Dan's tolerance limit. He broke into Alex's apartment angrily. As soon as they entered the door, they fought. Dan pinched Alex's neck fiercely. It wasn't until Alex was about to die that he suddenly regained his senses and let her go. But after Alex was relieved, she stabbed him with a knife. Dan took the knife and turned and left. During the whole process, the two people didn't say a word. Dan came to the police station and told the sheriff that Alex was trying to kidnap his daughter. The sheriff decided to arrest Alex first and would come back for questioning. But Alex was no longer in the apartment and they could only wait until there was news. When the wife who had been discharged from the hospital was preparing to take a shower, Alex came in with a knife suddenly like a ghost. She had completely lost her mind now. She thought it was all Dan's wife's fault. Downstairs, Dan heard his wife's exclamation and ran upstairs quickly. He rushed to stop Alex. After being stabbed a few times, he put Alex in the bathtub filled with water. Until Alex stopped struggling, he let go of her hand. When Dan was taking a breath, Alex suddenly stood up from the water. At this time, Dan's wife fired a fatal shot. She was fine now, but she couldn't take a bath anymore. Then the sheriff led people to clear the scene. The film was finally fixed on the family portrait of Dan's family. They regained a peaceful life as if nothing happened. But how should the crack in the heart heal? It's a game that only singles can afford to play. Those who are married are indeed not qualified. I did a movie called Unfaithful before. That film is relatively rare with women as the protagonist. It somehow has the same plot as Fatal Attraction. With these two educational films, I would like to warn those cheating couples all over the world. Well, this video ends here. Remember to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, see you next time.